I don't know where my parents are. Can I stay just for tonight?" The boy's eyes were filled with fear. He had nowhere to go. I couldn't turn him away. But I had no idea who he really was. And 27 years later, the truth would shake my entire world. Hey everyone, welcome to Legacy Tales, where small acts of kindness lead to unbelievable twists. This story will leave you speechless, so watch till the end. That night was colder than usual. Mark had just locked up his small convenience store when he noticed a boy sitting alone outside. His clothes were dirty, his hands shivering as he hugged his knees. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old. Mark hesitated. He wasn't in a position to help anyone, barely making ends meet himself. But something about the boy's eyes. There was pain there. "Hey kid, you okay?" Mark crouched down. The boy flinched at first, then shook his head. I lost my parents. I don't know where to go." Mark glanced around. No one seemed to be looking for him. It was late, and the streets were getting dangerous. "Come inside. You can have something to eat," Mark said. The boy hesitated but nodded. Once inside, Mark warmed up some soup. The kid ate like he hadn't seen food in days. "You got a name?" Mark asked. The boy hesitated. "Danny," he mumbled. Something felt off. He didn't look like a runaway. His face was clean under the dirt, his speech too refined for a street kid. But Mark didn't press. Danny gave him a grateful look but said nothing. Mark watched him for a moment before heading to bed. Little did he know, this single act of kindness would change his life forever. The next morning, Mark woke up to the sound of clinking dishes. For a moment, he forgot about the kid, until he walked into the kitchen and saw Danny washing the bowl he had used last night. "You didn't have to do that," Mark said, grabbing some bread. Danny just gave a small smile. "You helped me. I wanted to help back." Mark nodded. The boy was polite. Too polite for someone who claimed to be lost. "You remember where your parents might be?" Mark asked carefully. Danny's face darkened. "Number, I don't think they're looking for me." Mark frowned. Something was definitely off. But before he could ask more, the store's doorbell rang. A man in a dark coat stepped in, scanning the place before locking eyes with Danny. The boy immediately tensed. "Danny, it's time to go," the man said firmly. Mark's stomach twisted. "Who are you?" The man pulled out a wallet and flashed something, a government badge. Mark's heart pounded. "You a cop?" The man didn't answer directly. "We appreciate your kindness, but Danny isn't who you think he is." Mark glanced at Danny, who looked scared? No, it was something else. He was waiting, hoping Mark would stop this man from taking him. Mark felt his instincts screaming. "You're just gonna take him without an explanation?" The man's face didn't change. "For your own safety, it's best you forget about last night." Danny's hands clenched at his sides. Mark had no idea what was happening. But he knew one thing. This kid didn't want to go. And something told him. If he let Danny leave now, he might never see him again. Mark felt his pulse quicken. He had no idea who this man was, but everything about him screamed danger. Danny took a small step back, his fingers curling into fists. His lips parted slightly as if he wanted to say something, but didn't. Mark took a deep breath and squared his shoulders. "Look, I don't know who you are, but this kid showed up at my doorstep freezing. I gave him a place to stay, and now you want to take him without a single explanation?" The man sighed, his patience thinning. "Mr. Collins, this is not your concern." Mark's jaw tightened. "It is now." The man glanced outside the window. A black SUV sat idling on the curb, another shadowy figure visible inside. This wasn't just some lost kid. "Danny," the man said, voice cold, Come with me. Now. Mark's stomach twisted. He had seen a lot of things in his life. He'd met lost kids, runaways, troubled teenagers. Danny wasn't any of those. He was something else entirely. Danny's breathing grew uneven. I don't want to go with him. Mark clenched his fists. Then you're not going. The man's expression darkened. Don't make this difficult, Mr. Collins. Danny suddenly grabbed Mark's arm, his grip surprisingly strong. His voice dropped to a whisper. Please, trust me. And before Mark could react, Danny bolted, straight out the back door. The man swore under his breath and yanked a radio from his pocket. Target is running! Move in! Mark barely had time to process before chaos erupted. Doors slammed. Heavy boots pounded against the pavement. More men in suits appeared out of nowhere, all chasing after Danny. Mark's heart pounded. Who was this kid? But before he could think, a deep voice echoed through a hidden earpiece in the man's ear. Stand down. The man froze. Sir, he's getting away. I said stand down. We'll deal with this another way. And just like that, the men stopped. Mark watched in disbelief as they slowly retreated, the black SUV pulling away. The man turned back to Mark, his face unreadable. You have no idea what you just got yourself into. And then he left, leaving Mark standing there, breathless, confused, and realizing he had just become part of something far bigger than he ever imagined. Mark barely slept that night. His mind raced with questions, each one more unsettling than the last. Who was Danny, really? Why were those men after him? And why did they suddenly back off? By morning, Mark expected the worst. Police, agents, something. But the street outside his house was quiet. Too quiet. Then, at exactly 7 a.m., his doorbell rang. Mark hesitated. His gut told him not to open it, but he had to know. He took a deep breath and swung the door open. A tall, clean-cut man in a dark suit stood there. Behind him, 3 black SUVs were parked along the street, and standing in perfect formation around his house were at least 100 FBI agents. Mark's stomach dropped. The man gave a small, polite smile. Mr. Collins, we need to talk. Mark swallowed hard. Who are you people? The man stepped forward, lowering his voice. My name is Special Agent Harris. The boy you took in last night isn't just some lost kid. Mark's grip tightened on the doorframe. Then who is he? Agent Harris studied him for a long moment before speaking. He's the son of someone very powerful, someone who's been missing for 27 years. Mark felt his blood run cold. Missing? He echoed. Agent Harris nodded. And now, he's come back. Mark's mind reeled. The way Danny acted, his fear, the way those men chased him. It all made sense now. But one thing didn't. Why was he running from you? Mark asked. Agent Harris's expression darkened. Because not everyone in my agency wants him found. A chill ran down Mark's spine. So what happens now? Agent Harris took a deep breath. Now, Mr. Collins, you have a choice. Mark's pulse quickened. What choice? The agent's voice dropped lower. To walk away, or to help us find the truth? Mark knew, deep down, that his life would never be the same after this, but as he looked at the sea of agents surrounding his home, he also knew one thing for sure. He was already in too deep. Mark's heart pounded in his chest. He had a choice. But did he really? Walk away and pretend none of this ever happened? Or step into something far bigger than himself? His eyes flicked to Agent Harris, then to the SUVs lined up outside. There was no escape from this. With a steady breath, he nodded. I need answers. Tell me everything. Agent Harris exchanged a glance with another agent before motioning toward the SUV. Then you're coming with us. Mark hesitated. And Danny? The agent gave a firm nod. He's safe, for now, but time is running out. Mark climbed into the SUV, his mind racing. As they drove, Harris finally spoke. 27 years ago, a high-ranking government official vanished. His entire family disappeared, except for one infant. That baby survived. Mark's stomach turned. Danny. Harris nodded. We believe he was hidden away for protection, but someone inside the system didn't want him found. That's why he's been on the run his whole life. Mark exhaled. It was all making sense now. The fear in Danny's eyes, the men chasing him, the desperate need to stay hidden. But why come back now? Mark asked. Harris's jaw tightened. Because he knows something that could bring down very powerful people. Mark's throat went dry. And you think they'll come after me now? Harris's silence was enough of an answer. Mark rubbed his temples. What do you need from me? Harris leaned forward. You were the first person Danny trusted in years. He told you things he wouldn't tell us. We need to know exactly what he said. Mark's mind flashed back to Danny's words the night before. I know who they are. I know what they did, and they know I'm alive. Mark swallowed hard. And then, before he could speak, the SUV screeched to a halt. The driver turned sharply. We've got a tail! 2 vehicles! Mark's breath caught. His world had just turned upside down, and now someone was coming for them. The SUV swerved sharply as the driver tried to shake off their pursuers. Mark clutched the seat, his heart pounding. Who are they? Agent Harris checked his phone, his face grim. Not ours. Shots rang out. The back window shattered. Get down! Harris shouted, shoving Mark to the floor. The driver took a hard turn into a narrow alley, tires screeching. Where are we going? Mark gasped. Safe house, Harris barked. If we make it. Suddenly, another set of headlights appeared ahead. Reinforcements. Black SUVs blocked the alley. Doors flung open and armed agents poured out. Mark held his breath. But instead of raising their guns, the new agents surrounded the vehicle, shielding them. A commanding voice echoed through the chaos. Stand down! He's with us. The attackers hesitated, then retreated into the night. Mark was pulled from the car and rushed into a secure building. Inside, a tall man in a military uniform stepped forward. Mr. Walker, he said, you have no idea what you've stepped into. Mark steadied himself. Then explain it to me. The officer's gaze hardened. Danny isn't just any runaway. He's the only surviving witness to something this country buried decades ago, and now the people who covered it up know he's talking. Mark exhaled sharply. So, what now? The officer nodded toward a screen. Security footage played. Men in suits, shaking hands in secret meetings, documents being burned, and then an image of a boy, Danny, being taken away in the dead of night. You have 2 choices, the officer said. Walk away and forget everything, or help us expose the truth. Mark didn't even hesitate. I'm in. A small smile played on the officer's lips. Good, because this is bigger than all of us. Mark glanced at the screen one last time. Danny's fate, the truth, the years of secrecy, it all led here, and for the first time he understood. Some people run from the truth, others fight for it, and Mark had just chosen his side. Sometimes, a single act of kindness can pull you into something far bigger than yourself. Doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it can change everything. What would you have done in Mark's place? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to tell us which country you're watching from.